Hello everyone, my name is Kevin Hubble and I will be interpreting the scholarly article Winter Recreation in Canada Lynx, Reducing Conflict Through Niche Partitioning by John R. Squires et al. Um, John Squires co-wrote this article with Lucretia Olson, Elizabeth Roberts, Jacob Ivan, and Mark Hebblewhite, coming from the backgrounds of the federal government and the Forest Service, Colorado Parks Department, as well as academia, coming together to put this article together. Um, the research was conducted between 2010 and 2013 over a span of 4 years, and then 6 years later, after the data was all compiled, it was published in Ecosphere in 2019. The Rocky Mountains of Colorado is the study region, specifically looking at the White River National Forest, which is the most visited national forest in the U.S., as well as the Uncompahgre and San Juan National Forest. Both of these national forests being around 8,000 feet in elevation. So why did they pick the Canada lynx to study, and why the Southern Rockies? So Canada lynx were actually extirpated from the region in the 1970s and were only reintroduced in the early 2000s. And so the researchers wanted to look at how winter recreationists and Canada lynx were sharing the landscape, how Canada lynx were interacting, and how well they were surviving with the presence of people. What was unique about the areas that they were inhabiting, how are they partitioning the resources. And so the researchers came up with the hypothesis that Canada lynx would select environmental characteristics more similar to backcountry skiers than motorized recreationists. And I'll talk a bit more about why they picked these particular winter recreation groups. But for now, we'll just get into the objectives. So the two objectives that they had to do to complete this research was they had to track the movement of Canada lynx, and they had to track the movement of winter recreationists. And then once they had this data, then they could go and overlay it and look at how they are each interacting with the landscape and the resources that they partition between them. And so the methods were what allowed them to carry out their objectives. And so they captured 18 Canada lynx and gave them GPS collars. So that's 9 male and 9 female. And the collars were designed to ping off a location every 20 minutes for the duration of the study period. Likewise, the winter recreationists were given GPS at trailheads and tracked their movements while they recreated until the units were given back to the researchers. They classified the recreationists as backcountry skiers, hybrid skiers, on-trail and off-trail snowmobilers, which I combined together because the research showed that they aren't very different from one another, and then hybrid snowmobilers. And then the study was restricted between January and April to ensure that the people that were coming to recreate at the area were coming to do so in the winter weather. And then they created resource selection functions, which I'll just call RSF models or RSF factors. And basically, they are all of the factors that you see below. Just to touch on a couple, roughness of terrain describes the rockiness of the area, the landscape. Aspect describes which face of the mountain they're talking about, whether it's the north side, the south side, west, east. And then the topography position index describes whether they are on a surface that is like a mountaintop, concave, or like a valley bottom, and convex. And then later, once they had all their data together, they were able to use spatial interpolation using the GIS software ArcMap and relate the lynx movement with the RSF values, as well as to recreate movements as well. And what they found was that the Canada lynx avoided areas uh, generally used by motorized recreation and seem to uh, did not seem to show a response to places where non-motorized forms of recreation were used. So where the skiers were, they didn't seem to have a problem with it. With snowmobilers, they seemed to avoid it. Overall, lynx prefer habitat with greater forest edge, mid-elevation, higher forest road density, steeper slopes, and lower surface roughness. Uh, the research showed that they, the Canada lynx are able to partition the landscape, um, at least with the non-motorized forms of recreation. And this image kind of describes that. So as you can see, the lynx in red uh, are able to coexist quite well with the skiers in blue. However, they do not seem to hang out long in the areas where the snowmobilers are, maybe just crossing from one side of the valley to the other, but generally do not hang out there for very long. And then this figure describes the RSF values. I'm not going to get too deep into this, but as you can see, they all, the lynx, as well as all the forms of recreation, they avoid roughness of surface. They are all attracted to road density. But where the lynx and the skiers um, show the most similarities are in places of concave uh, surfaces, slope, and forest edge, as well as north. Um, and so the RSFs were combined to create one single value, the Canada lynx being 1, and all of the others, all of the winter recreationists were also given a value. The closer they are to 1, the more likely they are to share the same resources as the Canada lynx. So as you can see, the skiers had a 0.92, 0.78, were much closer to the 1 than any of the types of snowmobilers. And this figure kind of puts that into a graphical form. Backcountry skiers have a very similar slope to the lynx. The hybrid skiers very similar, and snowmobilers mostly different. Snowmobile on trail is a bit similar, but for the most part, all motorized recreation is quite different. And so, bringing it together, what does it all mean? Basically, what I took from Marchand's book that relates to the Canada lynx is resistance. So Canada lynx have to resist the winter environment as well as resist the stresses that come along with humans in their environment. And what we can see is that they're obviously responding negatively to motorized recreation. So that is some stress that they have to resist. However, they are able to partition the resources with non-motorized forms of recreation like skiing. So that's positive, but it's still unknown what the disturbance threshold that they are able to be enduring is. There would have to be more research done to kind of describe at what point is too much recreation, uh, too much for the Canada lynx to survive in. And this allows us to make some management decisions too. So we can promote the lynx populations by limiting types of motorized recreation, which we know that they are going to avoid. And it also tells us that um, we can increase populations potentially by increasing forest cover in mid-elevation parts of the Rockies, as we know that that's particularly RSF value or RSF functions that they respond positively to. And I just want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me, and I'll try to answer any questions you have about the topic. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching.